Hello. Hi. Here we are, live. Not as fancy settings like I had last week, but at least we're here. And my microphone and camera, again, are playing up. I don't know. I really, this fancy going live on YouTube is a bit too difficult for me. Anyway, here we are. Finally live. So first of all, thank you so much for logging in today. Hopefully you're going to have a valuable hour or so. And also, if you haven't seen the first live stream, although it was, quite poor quality because I was in Sicily, I hope you can tune in and watch it because the content is still valid. So I'm not gonna dwell on the imperfection of the thing. It's part of what I teach anyway. So let's start with today. So before I got too far, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe to the Green Gorilla channel. I'm hoping to populate it with new videos on a regular basis. So let's start with this week's chapters. The first of which, of SustainABLE, the first of which is When Winds Change, Opportunity Knocks. So we're still in part one of the book, and this particular chapter dwells a bit around the opportunities that sustainability is offering us right now. It starts with a quote from Mark Carney, who used to be the governor of the Bank of England, that says the firms that align their business models to the transition to a carbon neutral world will be rewarded handsomely, and those who fail to adapt will cease to exist. He also brings some examples and data around the big opportunities. We're talking trillions of dollars around sustainability. And so obviously that means a lot of opportunities for sustainable or sustainability professionals in this field. But it's also, obviously, there are risks as well associated with it. Now, you can be part of this change. So the bottom line of this chapter is that you have already what it takes to partake into this boom, which is going to happen very, very soon, about sustainability and the world of sustainability. And I know when you look at the news, it's all a bit doom and gloom, which is fine because there are things that need to be changed. Absolutely. I'm not denying, the climate crisis and the biodiversity loss and everything. But because of these issues, we already have a lot of the tools to fix them. And sustainability professionals are key in this process. So, it's also, it's easy for news to report bad news. Let's face it, newspapers thrive on the bad part of what's happening in the world. However, all of this has also helped raising awareness with the public and put pressure on decision makers to do something. And although it's been quite slow, and I'm going to talk about it in a second on the reasons for that, it is important because some stuff has already started to change, including, for example, some net zero carbon targets being set, including in England and in other places. Now, right now, it's hard to see the good news, I think, because day to day we face, for the majority of us working in this field, a dissonance between, so a shift between firms that have already understood that this is a big opportunity and firms and people that don't really accept the new status of things and the new paradigm, and they want to just stay as things as they are. And that's unfortunately who we deal with day to day. However, let me share with you a few key signs of change. Starting from the formation a few years ago of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, in brief, TCFD. Firms are encouraged, not obliged at the moment, but probably they will be in the future, encouraged to disclose their carbon and their environmental performance. Now, this sort of transparency is now key to the financial market because firms that act sustainably have been proven to be to have more longevity, so to last for longer. And obviously, if you have to invest into a firm, you want to invest into a firm that has that sort of stability, of course. So it is a key metric now for long-term investments. Also, green finance is starting to get momentum. At the moment, is less than 10% worth of the global investment, but it is increasing. One key news I thought it was quite amazing last month: BP, British Petroleum, has sold this petrochemical business to Ineos in June. For a firm that is called BP, and it was built on petroleum, on oil, is incredible that they decided to sell their business, so that part of the business. The other thing is, have you noticed how the EV market, so the electrical vehicle market, has exploded in the last few years? It's grown, I think, 5 times in what it was worth 5 years ago. So it is increased fivefold in 5 years. Incredible. So these are all signs that the world is moving in the right direction. It's easy to get swamped by the bad news, but let's look at the good news and the opportunities, monetary and otherwise. Of course, money drives the world still. We might not agree with it. We might not like the way things are. However, if this is the language that your clients speak, it's important that you learn to speak that language. And so it's important also to acknowledge that things are changing at the higher level, the financial level, because that will trickle down into the level that the majority of people like you and I work. Also, another good sign is that many firms are switching to more ethical and sustainable practices because it makes more sense for them, because it produces better product, because it makes sense for their customers and it's demanded by their customers. But they might not be shouting about it. And I make an example in the book about some winemakers that I visited years ago, but we're talking many, many years ago. And they operated totally organically. They didn't use any pesticides. They just didn't like the idea of using chemicals on their crops and wine, the wine crops. But they didn't know how to maximize that opportunity. They didn't know how to shout about it. So they just did it and nobody knew. It was too expensive for them to get the labels, like the organic label, because it's quite cumbersome and it takes a lot of effort and even bureaucracy. So lots of small producers, for example, don't really capitalize or even market themselves as sustainable. Others are even scared of being labeled as greenwashers or, hippies. Well, actually, sustainability and sustainable way of doing your business makes just good sense for them. What I'm thinking personally is that sustainability is becoming a synonym of quality and responsibility mainly. And who wants to be irresponsible in the way they deal with their business? And that's a shift that is happening. Also, sustainability makes economic sense. So if anything, you can share this data with someone that is a bit, unsure about it. The chair of IPCC, Dr. Lee, has calculated that going net zero carbon globally will require only 0.4% extra of global GDP to happen. So that is, it's so small compared to the catastrophic consequences of doing nothing. So if only we invested that less than 1% to become zero carbon or net zero carbon even, we will be so much better off. Now, what is the problem there? Why is not happening if it's so obvious? You can ask. It's lack of political will. It takes time to get people on board. It takes time to get people really convinced about this data, and not everyone knows it. And obviously, there are big interest in continue to do trade with oil and all the unsustainable businesses. So it's harder to transition in that sense quickly. Now, it has been estimated that climate change is worth, and the whole business around sustainability is worth trillions in growth and new jobs. Now, the key point of this chapter for me that I would like you to remember is that you can be part of the change because you got already the technical skills potentially, because you have the willingness and the passion to make it happen. How can we prepare for this opportunity, though? And that's the next question. Obviously, you need your technical skills. We're going to talk about them more towards the end of the session. But you also need to change attitude towards your role as a sustainability professional. You need to get inspired about this data. You need to see and seize the opportunity. And hopefully all of this will be done by honing a bit more your soft skills. Now, we got a question. When we say percentage carbon emission reduction per GDP, how carbon emission is related to GDP? I think we're talking about investing in, the global GDP, so 0.4% of the growth, profits from, globally, into new technologies that can ensure we go for net zero. So we achieve that net zero carbon. I think is that what you meant, Anmol? But it's literally an investment. Obviously, we need to invest into the new structures and the new paradigm. That's obvious, but it's quite a tiny proportion of the global GDP that can help us do that. Okay. Moving on to the next chapter, but please feel free to type in the chat any questions you might have, any comments, anything. And if I don't spot them initially, I will definitely go back to it while I have a little bit of a break. So how to keep your passion alive? That's the second chapter I wanted to talk about. Am I actually going into the right order? Just check. No, actually, I'm not. So find meaning in your daily job. Let me look at that. Find meaning in your daily job. Find meaning in your daily job. Yeah, sorry, I put some notes on my screen so that I know exactly what to talk about to you today. I had to review my book again. I haven't touched it since February, and now I'm reading it again, which is quite exciting, actually. I quite like it, but I did spot a few typos. Okay, find meaning in your day job. Now, if you're like you or me, it happens to get stuck in a rut. You just trottle along, life becomes a little bit of a routine. Yes, you started with passion, and then you just end up in a job that maybe you didn't choose. It happens to the best of us. In spite of what you studied, it might just happen that you get stuck in a job that doesn't make much sense to you. Now, hopefully by now you can, and also if you watch my previous video, you can see how you can make a big difference, and that you can make a difference even if you're just one person. However, how can you find your true reason for being and your true call through your work? This is what the Japanese call Ikigai, which literally means a reason for being. And it was originated as a concept in the island of Okinawa, where you got the people that have among the longest lives on Earth. And this has been attributed to the fact that they found their reason for being. So what is it? Unpacking it. It's a combination of what you love, with what you're good at, with what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. What you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. Now, you might be feeling perfectly fulfilled at this point in time, and so kudos to you. Well done, cherish the moment. If that's not you yet, if you're not in your sweet spot yet, I invite you to think of a plan for how to achieve this. Now, there are a few simple questions that you can ask yourself to really analyze whether you are where you want. One is, are you satisfied with what you do? And are your skills used to the full and to benefit the world? Now, I've seen some recent research saying that actually, on average, we only use 40% of our skills in our jobs. That's a pity. The majority of our skills are not getting used. And I remember when I used to work in the corporate world, probably was 10% of my skills being used. For example, one big thing that I have is creativity. I am a creative person. I use none of it in the job I used to do. People skills, sometimes you're stuck in a desk job and you can't meet people, and so on and so forth. So really ask yourself whether the skills you have been used to the full, and whether those skills can be better put to benefit the world. And do you love what you do? That's simple, but sometimes we don't ask ourselves, so do you love what you do? Maybe you like it, maybe it pays the bills, which is also a good point, of course, but do you love what you do? And also, and that's a sore point for a lot of people in this industry, are you being paid adequately for it? That's a bit of a sore point, I know, because sustainability, unfortunately, is not being valued as well as other industries. On average, I'm sure some of you guys are paid, really well, but the majority struggle a little bit. And again, first-hand experience looking for a job before Green Gorilla, I was quite shocked by the level of pay. So, of course, it's impossible to find the perfect balance of everything, but the more you got close to finding the 4 points and sort of meeting in the middle, the better you're going to feel about your job. So I invite you to do this little analysis on a regular basis, maybe once a year, and thinking, okay, do I love what I do? Am I satisfied with it? Are my skills used in the right way? And do they serve a purpose? And am I being paid adequately for it? And if something doesn't work quite right, then look around. Nothing wrong with that. The other thing is, if you have found your ikigai, if you have found your sweet spot, or even part of it, then use it when you speak to others. Show your passion for it without preaching, possibly, because preaching never goes far. In my own experience and in others' experience, when you start telling people what to do, they turn the other way, unless, of course, they trust you blindly, which is possible as well. But just show your passion, and your passion will drive others to you and will attract others to you. The one thing to remember is a phrase from Simon Sinek, which I hope you know, is an author that did a beautiful TED Talk, and he wrote a really good book called Start With Why. And he said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Okay? So often we go ahead and present ourselves with what we do and, our job, our skills, etc. But why do you do it? Why? What is the reason why people should connect with you at an emotional level? We'll talk about it more in the weeks to come, but the emotional connection is what really, really help you sell what you have to sell, whether it's your ideas or whatever you are selling, whether it's a product or anything at all. So the way to influence others is mainly by connecting at a deeper level, at the why level, the reason level. Now, hopefully you see now that you can have a massive impact with your profession, and even a long-term impact. Because I don't know if you work in buildings or in product manufacturing, these things are going to last for a while. So whatever you do now and whatever advice you give your clients or whatever you design today is going to last for a while, is going to create a legacy. And it's important to recognize that. It's not just your day-to-day grind. Even if you work at just one project at a time, there is a ripple effect. So ponder that. Think about it. You can have a huge impact on the world. And so if you feel uninspired, hopefully you're not feeling scared by this, but if you feel uninspired, just think about it. You can make a difference. Okay, I'm going to have a little drink. Feel free to ask questions. In the meantime, I will prepare for the next one, which links nicely into what we just discussed, which is how to keep your passion alive. So we were saying before, you might be feeling a bit meh about your work right now. You might not be in the perfect position, or you might just go used to it. Human beings thrive on dopamine, which is released when you do something new all the time. So, and it's normal, it's absolutely normal not to feel enthusiastic about what you do every single day and every minute of your working day. It happened to me, okay? In the first place, it happened to me when I spent, as you probably know, if you know a bit of my life, 12 years at BRE, Building Research Establishment. And, for the majority, I was quite happy. I thought I found my Ikigai. It was great. But then I found a job in a different department. It was actually the training department. And although I enjoyed training, somehow the office politics, the day-to-day, really brought me down. And then I got kids, and then I got busier and busier. So sustainability sort of went right at the back of my head. And of course, this is one of my values. So I do keep recycling and, try and make as little an impact as I can. But it wasn't at the top of my head. That's simple as that. Okay, I'll stop there because there is an interesting question about the why. So Daniel says, is the how equally as important as the why? That's a fantastic question. I would say why is really important because it's the reason why you're doing something and the reason why you're connecting with others and why others should connect with you. And that's also goes when you build your personal brand. I'm quite big on personal branding. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you know what I mean. Be authentic, be yourself, show yourself as your own brand. Create trust and build your reputation by showing up consistently every day. My why is quite clear and people are attracted to that. They trust me because, for the majority, I hope, they trust me because we share the same common values, so the deepest why, okay? The how, the way you actually do things is important, but it comes next. And the what you actually do is really at the bottom. So I invite you to watch that TED Talk, which is also on YouTube by Simon Sinek. It's fantastic. And it shows how Apple and Microsoft and Amazon and all of these big companies actually build their wealth and their popularity on the scale of why, how, and what. So first of all, focus on why people should trust you, what you believe in. So the real core of the reason why you are operating, then how you're going to do that. So what sort of, how, exactly how you're going to deliver that value. Finally, what you're going to do. Okay. Perfect. Some people follow Simon Sinek closely. He is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. Okay, so going back on how to keep your passion alive, I hope that answered your question, Daniel. And Simon Sinek can explain that better than me because this is his idea, but he makes perfect sense to me now. And he's like, okay, just let me give you an example of the why versus the what, for example. Apple never says, look at my mobile phone, it's amazing, buy it. He has 3 cameras, whatever. Yes, that's the what. But Apple, with their sleek advertisements and, the fact that lots of high-profile people got Apple phones, iPhones, etc., is selling you an idea of lifestyle. That's the reason why you should have that particular phone, because you want to be at the same level as the celebrities or the smart people, the rich people, whatever you like, but they transfer just by using an imagery that is specific. They show you the why. You are part of a very elitarian club when you buy an iPhone. How it's a phone with a lot of features, you can call whatever, and that's the how, is through the phone, and the what finally is the actual features. So the why is so much more important to sell than the what. Okay, how to keep your passion alive again. So if you are struggling at the moment with your motivation, with a job that might just pay the bills, obviously you need to rethink about your values. I think values I never thought about my values until a few years ago. And of course, I have values, many of them as well. But I never specifically made a list of what's really important for me and what should come before other things. And that's, I think, how some of my choices in life weren't so smart, because I wasn't following my values. Of course, money can be a value, but generally speaking, in this industry, we're more driven by the environment, for example, or ethical trading. And, there are other reasons why we want to make a difference and we want to save the world or whatever. We're more idealistic than that. However, when you face your clients, you might find a big brick wall, because you come from a value place, they come from a money place. And again, it's a generalization. You might have encountered very illuminated clients, but it's not always like that. So how can you actually keep your passion alive when you're faced with difficulties every day and clients that don't care every day? And if you, like me, are a BRIAM consultant, tick box, and yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, it becomes quite tedious and you lose, I wouldn't say that we'll leave, but, nearly there. You really lose your passion. You really forget about the higher purposes. So the first suggestion I can give you is to make a conscious effort to keep learning. And I know that you already have studied, probably, you have degrees, you have masters, you have qualifications, but you need to keep learning. And the more you are curious and keep your curiosity going, the better you're going to feel about yourself, because you're going to fuel that passion that you have inside you with new information. You substantiate and you support your knowledge more and more, and you become more assertive as well, because you find proof of what you believe in everyday life and in whatever you look at. So an easy way of keep learning, lots of us do it. LinkedIn is amazing. Lots of people are on LinkedIn for CPD. Is gone are the days of LinkedIn there just to find a new job. It's not like that anymore, although it's brilliant for that. But use it for CPD. People share brilliant articles and books and videos, and even listening to other people's opinion is illuminating. You find out a lot of stuff. But you can also read magazines from your membership organization if you are a member of AIMA or something like that. Or you can connect, I don't know, with the Green Building Council of your country or the World Green Building Council. They publish on a regular basis very, very good publications and white papers, etc. So keep learning, keep abreast of changes, sign up for newsletters that are relevant to your profession. Keep that going, because otherwise that little flame extinguishes in the end. Another suggestion I have for you is to do something different from your day job. If your day job is to save the gorillas, I'm sure that's amazing and that's already fulfilling in itself. But if your day job at the moment is the tick box exercise, which we were talking about before, then do something more inspiring at the weekend. Go and plant trees, volunteer for your local charity, environmental or not, blog, for example. I have one of my clients who wants to blog, but at the beginning he was a bit unsure about it, because he thought, what can I add that is new in a world that has, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million blogs, probably more than that. And what can I add that is different from, what other people who got more experience have to say? I tell you what you can add is you. You and your idea and your point of view and your intelligence can make a whole load of difference. There are lots of blogs about all sorts of things, from household issues, cleaning, parenting, environmental. But they all have a different voice, and people are interested in hearing your voice and your point of view. So it's still worth blogging. It's a very fulfilling activity. And if you blog, use LinkedIn to publish your articles as well, because you're going to get a lot more exposure. That's a little tip, marketing tip. And someone that has done just that, who I interviewed for the Green Gorilla Conversation oh gosh, I can't think of his name. He wrote an amazing book. So he wrote a bunch of articles, and then the articles became a book about circular economy. Dave Cheshire, yes, I got him now. Dave Cheshire, so brilliant man. He wrote articles as a side activity when he had time, etc. And then more and more they compounded, and then in the end he was asked to write a book, which is quite remarkable. And obviously, and I've done something similar. I wrote a lot on LinkedIn via articles, and then some of those ended up in my book, SustainABLE. Okay, third and final tip for this: don't rely on motivation. I couldn't shout that louder. We always experience that motivation burst at the beginning of something new. Typical, 1st of January, I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. I'm going to, I don't know, start running for marathon next year. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then 3 weeks in, our motivation is fading, or is even faded. So your good, your good ideas and your good promises are just gone. Don't rely on motivation. Rather, think about who do you want to be? What type of person do you want to be? It's all down to personal choice. So if you paint yourself as a smoker, so I am a smoker, you identify with being a smoker. If you say I'm not a smoker, or I used to be a smoker, or I don't smoke, then you're painting yourself as a non-smoker. And that helps you keeping with your promises. If you say, I go to the gym on a regular basis, I am a gym goer, or I am an author because I write, I'm a writer because you write now and then. This is all helping reinforcing your idea of yourself. It's not always true. If you write, a few blog posts, you might not find yourself being a writer as such, or, other people recognizing you as a writer. But the more you say that to yourself, the more you become that person. So instead of relying on motivation, rethink the sort of person you want to be. It's all down to your values, your intentionality, so how much intention you put in things, and personal choice. The other thing is, once you decide who you want to be, so if you want to be an environmentalist, if you want to be, if you want to save the planet, and call yourself an environmentalist, that way, you're going to reinforce, and all your actions will be filtered through that filter that you yourself put in place. Another thing is, avoid decision fatigue. Once you decide, don't decide again tomorrow, and don't decide again tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. I explain in the book my personal experience with becoming vegan, which happened in January last year. At the beginning, I was scared of using the term vegan and identifying with that persona. I said, I eat a plant-based diet because it was scary. It was a change of personality. It was a change of identity for me. And then little by little, I actually felt more comfortable, and I didn't see the stigma anymore with being a vegan. And now I can say I'm a vegan. Even if sometimes, like last week when I was in Sicily, I ate some cheese because it's impossible nearly to go to Sicily and not eat animal products, just because the cuisine is so rich in it. So everything has some butter or, lard even, anyway. But I'm doing my best to be my best persona. And one part of my identity is being a vegan and an environmentalist. And it's okay if you fail now and then, but identify with the person you want to be and the type of person you want to be, and you're going to find it much easier. You're not going to make a choice every day. That this is you, this is it. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every day. Otherwise, it becomes tiring. And that's the way of building good habits. Just show up consistently every day, make a decision once, and just go with it. Okay, so things like, so how do you apply this in your working life? You might want to identify with the person that wants to make a difference, with the environmentalist, keeping up with the industry. I'm one that keeps up with the industry. I'm engaged in local charitable activities, etc., etc. You can find whatever you like and stick with it, identify with it. Now, I don't know whether you've done that, but I invite you to download the free action steps workbook that you find on the website under the book tab, and fill the section that you got under this chapter, which again, I remind you, is called How to Keep Your Passion Alive. Fill the section to put together a concrete plan on how to keep your passion alive. So you can do that quite easily, and it's free. Another drink of water. Okay, so moving on to another chapter. What if I can't make an impact? Now, this is one of the biggest issues that I found in sustainability professionals out there. A recent survey by the Women in Sustainability Network, and I'm one of the advocates now, I'm actually the hub leader for my region, the Hertfordshire region. They said that 7 out of 10 respondents said the biggest challenge they have is not to be able to make an impact. That's terrible, because you feel powerless. And it's not just women, absolutely not. It's also men, because I remember speaking to someone last year who seemed quite a successful professional. It was a man, young, maybe in his 30s, and he struggled with that as well. He didn't feel was making enough of an impact. Now, some of the external situations and external factors can have an influence. So, for example, if you find yourself in corporate settings or in front of clients that are really hard to crack, and they're naysayers, etc., can be daunting, and that can deflate your confidence. However, the majority of the problem starts inside yourself. Sometimes we start a conversation or even a job with what is called impostor syndrome. It's a very real form of anxiety. I'm sure many of you are already aware of it. They seem to affect 70% of us. They say even Maya Angelou and Albert Einstein had imposter syndrome, and that just shocks me. But hey, everyone goes through it, or the majority of us. What does it look like? You feel less than others. You feel maybe younger or too young or too old. You feel less qualified. You feel less articulate. You feel less confident or less outgoing. You have always a reason for not being fit for purpose for the situation. Now, obviously, some of this is projection in your mind, and other things might be real, like maybe you're new in a company and you just graduated yesterday. Of course, you are younger than others, and you're new, so that's obvious. But that shouldn't stop you from making an impact, and I'll tell you why in a second. So, first of all, what can you do? What can you do to change this outlook, and how can you start making an impact? You need to first ask yourself what's holding you back. As simple as that. Do a little analysis. Again, in the action steps, you find a way of assessing your soft skills. And also in the first chapter, you have, again, an opportunity to assess a little bit what's stopping you from feeling successful. So ask yourself, what's holding you back? Do you really need to take another training course? I know people, they collect them because they never feel ready to work. So they do another training course and another training course. In certain cases, it's good because obviously it's new learning. In other cases, it's just stopping you from doing things because you keep on learning and you never feel ready. So see whether that is reality or it's just fear. And so the first thing is really to acknowledge that. The second is confirm the reality. So is it just your mind playing tricks? You might be exaggerating the situation right now. Third, cut yourself a break. You are a work in progress. I am a work in progress. We're all work in progress. Perfection doesn't exist. We always say that, but then we fall into the trap of feeling we're not perfect for anything. The good thing is, going back to, when you are new in a company, for example, is that you can always bring a new or fresh perspective. So if you're younger than others and new in a company, that doesn't mean that you cannot make an impact. It just means that you have a different perspective. And actually, this is very welcome sometimes in companies that have been operating always in the same way, and they need that, new look and the fresh pair of eyes. The same if you are too old or you feel you're too old. You got experience. So you can actually speak from experience. If you don't feel qualified enough, is that real? Or is it just your fear holding you back? So try and analyze what's going on inside you and be willing to learn from your mistakes. I said that last week, and I say that this again. In Italy, we say, actually in Sicily, we say, if you eat bread, you make crumbles. Or crumbs, you make crumbs. It's normal. You make mistakes because you're leaving. If you weren't leaving, if you were just stopping and not doing anything, then of course you wouldn't make mistakes. But it's part of life. Okay. So the good thing is that you can learn from your mistakes and use any opportunity to hone and practice your skills. Sustainability, by the way, is a very complex sector. It's impossible to know everything. I don't know one person on the planet that knows everything about sustainability. Also because it goes from products to cars, to planes, to environment, to biology, to food, to everything. It's impossible to know everything. So just cut yourself on some slack. Learn new skills. So now that you've done this little analysis, it might actually come out that you do need another training course. I'm about to embark in another training course myself to become a professional accredited coach. I am coaching, but I need more tools. I'm good at coaching, but I realize, and it's not imposter syndrome, I realize actually more tools will be welcome and it can help my clients better. So I'm doing it because I've analyzed the situation. So you can do the same. See whether also you can learn some techniques, at the very least, if it's not a training course, some techniques to perform better in front of an audience. You know that we do a lot of this in Green Gorilla, so I don't need to sell you that. But one tip, for example, that Susan Eaton Wright, one of my collaborators at Green Gorilla, gave us, is to do some homework before a meeting. So if you don't feel confident to speak in front of an audience, even if it's a small audience like new clients or even a bigger audience, now we do a lot of online events, maybe you have to speak online in front of a number of people. Do some homework before the meeting if you can. Try and understand who is there and who can you learn from, and listen to people, not just, you don't have to feel compelled to talk and that's it. But the key bit is to prepare. The more you know about the meeting or the event and the people that will be there, the better you feel prepared. And you will almost feel like you're familiar with them. So that's a little tip, but there are many, many others that you can learn. Questions? You're silent this afternoon, guys. No, actually, you asked already a few questions. Okay, so final chapter for today. So we break now into part 2. Part 1, it was all the introduction about you and trying to establish where you are at in terms of your skills and your soft skills and what can stop you from thriving as a professional in this field and industry. Part 2. Oh, wow, that's a good question. Before I go ahead, how can I get invisible opportunities? What do you mean? What do you mean by invisible opportunities? Opportunities that you can't see right now? How to handle corporate bullies? Okay, I'm going to get there in a minute. But okay, Lucas, if you want to explain what you mean by invisible opportunities, I suppose it's things that you can't see immediately. I think the key there is still to be curious and be hidden job market. Okay. As far as I understand from what I studied and I learned, the majority of job opportunities are actually found by networking with people. So yes, there is a big proportion of the jobs that go on LinkedIn, for example, or through recruiters, but the majority actually are by recommendation from one person to the next. What does that tell you? That you need to create your personal brand, that you need to be present on platforms that you think are relevant to your market. And again, I'm a super advocate of LinkedIn. If you can do that, that means publishing regularly, expressing your thoughts, commenting on others' posts in an intelligent way, writing articles, making videos, etc. Really create your personal brand. Really think about what's unique about you. And we're going to go into that in a minute. What's unique about you? Then people will come to you because they will know already what you can offer. The other thing is, maybe not at this time, but hopefully in the future a bit more, network like crazy. Face to face is always better, I would say. Yes, digital is great, but nothing can substitute face to face interaction. But networking is a key thing to find new opportunities, interesting opportunities, and things that fit you better. Because if they come from people that know you, then they will know, possibly they will see that opportunity. I just say they will see that you fit better in that position than just looking at a job advertising or job description. So I would say create your personal branding on social media and network as much as you can. Yeah, networking like crazy is great. So Anmol asks, this might be a bit bad, but how to handle corporate bullies? That's a tough one, isn't it? It all comes down to understanding why they bully you. When we were at school, it was easy to spot in a way. They might be jealous of you. They might be threatened by you. It's the same in the corporate world. What worries them? Because people that bully you are worried in some ways. They act out of fear. You might be threatening them. You might be. They might think. It happened to me as well to be bullied at work not long ago. Before I came in. Before I became Green Gorilla. And it was that this particular person felt threatened by me. I ended up losing my job because of this. I moved on. The fact is, I tried to be as assertive as I could without responding to the threats, because sometimes they are aggressive, sometimes they're sneaky. You need to maintain your professionality, I would say, your professional face and outlook, and but try and understand what's threatening them. In some cases, you could speak to them and say, look, I don't appreciate you talking to me like this. I don't appreciate you acting like this to me. What's the problem? What's the matter? Can we discuss it? And when you are so upfront about it, instead of reacting, you are actually proactively trying to sort out that problem. It might actually sort itself out. It's harder to know like this, but it's usually the fear. And once you understand what that fear is, you might be able to tackle it better. In my particular case, we had some frank discussions. I ended up, as I said, being made redundant at the first round, even though I know they needed me, but whatever. And then I found a better thing. Actually, I love what I do now. I wouldn't go back. So I think it's always worth trying to understand. And also, if this is too much for you, if it's too big for you, then hopefully you can ask for someone more senior to help you to unpack the situation. Maybe they can mentor you in the situation. Without knowing the details, I can't really say any more than this. But I would say when it happened to me as well, in another occasion, to be bullied, and it was actually, quite harassing as well. It's not just the bullying; it was quite ugly. I did speak to the person who I thought was my mentor in that particular company. He was a senior member of the staff, and he helped me hugely. He gave me some very good advice. So I'd say you don't have to do it all alone, and but there are several ways you can go about it. I hope that helps. Daniel, when finding the right technical skills, it is a good idea to gain experience prior to the chosen development program, so you can apply what you learn, or better to gain the qualification first? It depends very much. So, for example, in my particular field, which is sustainable construction, lots of people come into the job with a master's degree, for example, specific to sustainable building or energy efficiency, etc. And then they gain the extra qualification via the company. And that's especially when you are a junior member of the staff, and nobody would expect you to have invested thousands of dollars, pounds, or whatever you have there in developing yourself to a higher level of qualification. If you are a bit further down, it is helpful, I think, to have the qualifications that you need to get into a specific field. But again, it depends very much on the industry. Don't just take qualifications for the sake of it. There is a plethora of qualifications nowadays that you can take in sustainability. Choose wisely, I would say, because they all cost money. Choose wisely. And the more you can invest in soft skills, I would say, the better for yourself, because that's sort of, it works in every field. But in terms of specific qualifications, it depends on your situation, depends on the industry. Also, you can maybe you can gauge the situation from LinkedIn. Have a look at the potential job opportunities that you have and see what qualifications they ask for at your level. So if it's a junior or a senior, etc., just look at what companies ask for, because if they all ask for the same qualification as a must-have, then of course you have to invest in it. But if it's a good to have or potentially good to have or that sort of thing, then maybe wait until you get the job. Does that help? And also, experience is key, I would say. Qualifications are great, and they're probably the starting point. Experience is, the most important thing. So even if you are a junior, if you can manage to gain some experience via volunteering, for example, and you can use those transferable skills to put in your CV, that's amazing. You don't have to be, a veteran in anything. But showing the willingness, for example, to lead within, your local charity or whatever, those are very valuable skills, even though they're not paid work. And I'm talking to the graduates that might be listening to this. Okay, so moving on to part 2 and the top 5 skills. So part 2 is all about the 5 top skills that I think are needed to become a successful sustainability professional. Of course, we focus our attention on technical. We all do that. We start our careers focusing on the qualification, which is fantastic. It's needed as well. However, so what do you need the qualifications for? Because you need to learn the job, and you need to become credible as well. You need to become credible within your industry. If you have the right qualifications, people will take you seriously. Fine. However, the more senior you become, the more you have to rely on your communication skills. I would say top is communication. The more of a leader you want to become, the more you have to face your demons and become a spokesperson for your ideas. You have to become motivational to others. You have to convince and influence others. You have to use your charisma, even though at the moment you don't feel you have any. I have developed my own style. I was worried, for example, at the beginning that I use my hands too much because I'm Italian. No, it's part of my personality and part of my character. Do you know what? I learned to speak confidently in front of an audience, but these are things that you can absolutely learn, and they're key to you becoming more of a leader in your field. Now, the 5 skills that I've identified to me are very, very key in this case are technical, of course, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. Communication, selling, and that includes influencing, storytelling, assertiveness, etc. Project and people management as well, because you will find yourself managing projects and people without having probably the qualification for it. And resilience. So these 5: technical, communication, selling, project and people management, and resilience. Today we're going to talk about technical, and in the weeks to come we're going to talk about the others. Let me just see what Daniel said. Qualification opened the door, but perhaps both experience and qualification, and then alignment to my career development helps the most. Again, it's like you have to make the call, Daniel. You have to decide what's right for you. But generally, I would say depends very much on the level you are aiming at. So technical skills, as I said, important as a basic tools for you to carry out your job. You know, you wouldn't be able to be, I don't know, a sustainability consultant in the food industry unless you had, you know, the qualifications that you have. But what makes you different, that's the key, because I'm sure there will be lots and lots of graduates from your same course who on paper have exactly the same CV, exactly the same qualifications, but how can you stand out and be different compared to them? As I was saying at the beginning of this session, sustainability is becoming mainstream. Lots of jobs will come and lots of more people will be attracted to this field. So there will be competition, a lot more than there is at the moment. How can you differentiate yourself? That's the key question. So I would say always start from evaluating your values and your strengths beside your skills. So the skills, we know that what goes into your CV, fine. But what are your values? As I was saying before, I didn't know exactly what my values were until a few years ago, until I actually thought about it. There are a few tests that you can do to highlight your values and your strengths, which I found really illuminating for me. And they won't come as a new thing for you. You will know that, for example, whether you are extrovert or a people person versus a more analytical person, you will know that. But maybe you never capitalized on those skills and those strengths. I would say values and strengths. There are a few tests you can do. Again, check the action steps workbook, which contains a few links that you can click on and do the tests. I always do those tests. I actually always suggest to my coaching clients to do those tests to start with. Because also this sort of, if you manage to integrate those into your CV and your professional profile, it's gonna make a huge difference from just putting there, yeah, I got a degree in this and a master's in that, and I enjoy photography at the weekend, type of thing, versus demonstrating that you use your people skills. And again, well, maybe I can do a separate session for that, but how to write your CV to get at least an interview, that's very important. But always think about the results. And that is a way of also showcasing your extra strengths and values. Also, those can be put in your cover letter. That's a very good place where to put your strengths and values. But anyway, if you want to know more about this, get in touch. Obviously, this is part of what I do as well. Your knowledge sorry, starting to get tired after an hour. Your knowledge is an evolving asset. So don't sit on your degree and do nothing with it. It's fine, but it's your starting point. Keep it up to date. What does it mean? You need to keep curious, like we were saying before. There are some ideas, again, in the action steps. Some of them are, think about who can help you keeping up to date with your industry. Is he, for example, a mentor? You might get a mentor. By the way, there is a great sustainability mentor network I'm part of. That is all voluntary based. And I already have a couple of mentees, so I can't help right now with that. But there are plenty of great mentors on the platform that you can access, and it's completely free. So check it out. So who can help you? Can it be a mentor? Can it be social media personalities, perhaps, so people you admire that you can follow? Or where can you find reliable data and info? Could it be newsletters, like we were saying before, or membership organization magazines? Where can you find reliable, not fake news type of data? What group and membership can you join? Because sometimes they impose you to do CPD, and that in a way forces you to do that CPD and keep it up. CPD is continuous professional development, for those that don't know. And one of the most important things is, when are you doing your CPD? When are you developing your technical skills? I would suggest you put it in the calendar at the beginning of the year, being that your financial year or calendar year, whenever, and do it for a year. So you look at all the potential, I don't know, exhibitions or conferences and things you want to attend. First of all, that helps with budgeting if you have to support yourself with that. If it's your employer, it gives you time to ask for that money, or to pay for you to go there. And also you've got something to look forward to, and is already in the calendar, so you're more likely to do it. On a regular basis, I would say on a weekly basis, look at your industry magazines, look at your newsletters, look at your LinkedIn profile and other people's profiles, and really keep up to date. One suggestion I have is to create time always at the same time in the same place, so it becomes a very easy habit to keep up with. So I don't know, Saturday morning with your morning coffee, you can do a bit of that, or Friday morning on your commute to work, whatever makes sense for you. Okay, guys, so this is actually the end of it. Do you have any questions for me on the technical? Or is anything that you want to comment on for the whole session? It'd be great to have a like as well, so others can see it too. How many years you worked in this field before Green Gorilla? Okay, that's a personal question. So I got my master's degree in sustainable building and energy efficiency from Oxford Brookes University in 2006. And then ever since I worked in sustainability, because in 2006, armed with that master's, I found a job at BRE, Building Research Establishment. And I was one of the authors of BREEAM, if you know, the Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method for Buildings. So lots of technical guidance development. I worked with sustainable buildings ever since. But I've done a lot of business development as well. I've done a lot of training. I've trained thousands of people in my time on BRE, but I've been in the field since 2006. I hope that helps. Does it give me credibility? Hopefully some credibility. And I am working currently as well as a BREEAM consultant. So I'm one of you guys. If you're working with sustainable buildings, I'm one of you. Although I don't want to do it forever, because it is quite uninspiring for me and it's not making enough of a difference. And that's my personal view. Not to, I don't want to discredit anything or anyone, but that's my personal view. Found really helpful in joining membership societies such as AIMA or Institute of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability. Not too expensive and shows your insight into the industry. Oh, that's quite interesting. Institute of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability. Okay, yeah, absolutely. I think joining one of these bodies, even as a graduate, if you are a graduate, is a very helpful way to network, learn, and really keeping up with the industry. I think is very, very helpful. It's on my to-do list to join AIMA, and the company is an AIMA company, so Green Gorilla is accredited with AIMA for the training, but I haven't got round to do the exam for the AIMA, so I will do it. Sorry, not perfect. Perfect. Okay, guys. If you have any other questions, so please type them in the live chat or in the comments below. And even if you're watching this on repeat, in a few days or months' time, and I will always reply as best as I can. Otherwise, get in touch. info@thegreengorilla.co.uk if you have a longer comment, emails, feedback, or whatever. Very, very much appreciated. But otherwise, I'll see you next week for what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about the power of communication. That's a big one. So the whole session is going to be about communication. So if you have the book, read the communication part, and then we can discuss it together in this place, same time, same place. Thank you very much, and have a lovely afternoon. Bye.